Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina.
Hey everyone, it's Celine. So in my first video I mentioned the Equality Bill and the amendments to that legislation that is currently attempting to be pushed through New South Wales Parliament at the moment by Alex Greenwich. I'm pleased to say that the debate has been delayed until June. However, I do stand by everything that I said in that video. I think it will be another step towards the destruction of women's sex-based rights and the further lack of safeguarding for children. So today's video is going to be some global examples of what happens when self-ID does take over. Keep in mind that it's going to be extremely confrontational. If you have small children around, please don't let them listen to this. It's going to get pretty full on. So we're going to start in Scotland because as of yesterday their Hate Crime Act came into effect. If you don't know what that is, it's another piece of bonkers legislation which pretty much states that anything that you say online that's deemed as being hateful, you can be arrested for. We're closer to 1984 than you think. J.K. Rowling made a brilliant post about it on X. I highly recommend you go look at it. Also, it's very confronting as well, but she's amazing. She really is. So, for Scotland, I want to focus specifically on the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre, and even more specifically, the CEO of that crisis centre. Here he is here. Now, I can't pronounce his name to save my life, and I don't really want to try, so for the duration of this video, I'm going to be calling him Old Mate. So, in May of 2021, Old Mate was elected the CEO of this Rape Crisis Centre. Keep in mind that the position was advertised for women, being that it's a rape crisis centre. And here, just a first little snippet of what Old Mate's about. This will give you a good judge of character.
Is there a personal reason for getting into this line of work?
Staying on has been personal because it was pretty clear to me that I was the only trans woman in the women's aid movement, and I wasn't even sure whether I would have been hired if they had known that I was trans.
Got the job, didn't disclose the fact that you're a dude. Oh, actually, before we get to this quote, this man has no qualifications, right? He's got a MSc in Management and Training, a BA in English Literature, and a diploma in Hotel Management. On the 265th episode of the Guilty Feminist podcast, he was their guest speaker. And here's a direct quote. "Sexual violence happens to bigoted people as well." Doesn't really seem like a professional thing to say from a person in power, a CEO of a rape crisis centre. And he goes on to say that he believes, you know, you can't really overcome your trauma unless you deal with your prejudices. Just real alarming opinions for someone who is in charge of a crisis centre. And down the bottom there we got, you know, therapy is political and it isn't always seen like that. That's because it's not. These are the most vulnerable women being housed in these shelters, and they have a bloke running the show. In that same podcast, Old Mate also attempted to address the concerns that there are men housed in that crisis centre, trans women, men. He justified it by saying that men are already in these spaces because they made decisions about its funding. So it's pretty obvious where Old Mate's allegiances lie. Inclusivity, but exclusive of women who want a woman-only service, right? So as we see here, the centre has declined women's services for simply asking if they will be speaking to a woman. I don't know about you ladies, but if I had a traumatic experience like that happen to me and I went to one of these shelters, I would not want to speak to a man. I think that is completely understandable. And here we have a clip of Old Mate saying that he uses his passing advantage to gain access to spaces that other trans people can't.
But I have the privilege of being a woman who passes. So, you know, and I use that to my advantage because that has given me access to spaces and to people who normally would not all trans people would have that access. So I use that effectively. Yeah, and I think I use my personality, which of course not everyone has, a charming personality. I use that to my advantage. I hope that helped. I hope I answered your question. I speak in a very personal.
Alright, so keep in mind as well, okay, this bloke's got no qualifications, none at all, has no business being the CEO, but it's not just that he's the CEO. He actually provides counselling for these women, as we'll see here. I do see survivors 4 times a week usually who help me stay connected to the cause. Something tells me what you've got between your legs might help you stay connected to the cause, but you know. And here we go, it's important to keep it fun. Make of that what you will. Right, so now we move on to Spain, and doing research for this video, I quickly realised that Spain's pretty far down the gender identity wormhole. Kids as young as 12 can change their gender without their parents' permission. Then they've got a pretty how you go on gender-based violence law. So I'm not going to speak on Spanish culture and the problems that they have for a minute. I just want to say, so in Spain, gender-based violence is a specific charge for male violence against women. It cannot happen the other way around. Now, I have a few issues with that, super surface level, don't get mad. Even though, yes, obviously in Spain they have a huge problem with male violence against women, and in many other countries as well. But I think we can't ignore the fact that women do commit violence against men. And I know this firsthand because when I was 18, I was making really bad decisions. I accompanied one of my girlfriends at the time to court because she beat the living shit out of her ex-partner with a keyboard. So women do and can commit violence against men. I think it's a little ignorant to think otherwise. However, in Spain, it definitely seems like they have a really big male-on-female violence problem. So I just wanted to get that out there, and then so what's going on in Spain is appalling. They introduced a law last year called Law 4/2023. You see it here. Changing your gender over there is ridiculously easy. No medical intervention needed, no visit to a doctor, nothing. I believe you just show up at a registry. I think it's 3 months apart. You don't even have to show intent to live as the opposite sex. You can keep your male name, you can keep your beard, whatever. It is self-ID to the nth degree. I believe, therefore I am. And we've got the perfect example of that here. So we've got Roberto Perdigo, I can't pronounce the last name. So here he is here. And Roberto now is legally recognised as a bi-gender lesbian, I believe it is. As you see here, I feel like a heterosexual man, but inside I'm a lesbian woman, which is what prevails. That's why I made the change. I did it because I could. And that's the issue in it. With all these laws, you can scream trans rights till the blood cows come home, but at the end of the day, people are going to use the law to their advantage. And the most confronting part about this article was this bit here. So he says he plans to use the law to obtain custody of his estranged son, given now that he is a woman, he's a mother. I have a 16-year-old son from a former relationship. As a father, I haven't seen him, but now that I'm no longer a father, I'm a non-gestating mother. See how this language can be manipulated? It means I can fight on equal terms with his biological mother. Now, I don't know that story, but doesn't it just give you chills to know that anyone can take advantage of these laws? I also found another example of a couple in their 60s who were together for 11 years. Now, due to the fact that it's still going through the court system, their names haven't been released. But pretty much the story is, together for 11 years of marriage. He started cross-dressing, right? Wanted to be in a lesbian relationship. And the wife, who, as you see here, her name's been redacted, it's now Carmen. So Carmen didn't want to be in a lesbian relationship because she was a straight woman. And he didn't like that very much and became very, very violent with her. She couldn't charge him with gender-based violence because he changed his gender. And as I've mentioned before, it only works one way in Spain. So what ended up happening was he ended up charging her. for misgendering him. Make it make sense. And to just drive the point home of how bad things are in Spain, this is a letter that was sent from, please forgive me, I'm going to butcher these names, I'm sorry. So we've got a letter sent from Ana Dávila-Ponce de Leon, who is the Councillor for Family, Youth and Social Service Affairs in Madrid, and it's sent to Ana Redondo Garcia, who's their Equality Minister. Now, I popped this letter into Google Translate. I'll read it out. So, from the municipal points of the Observatory of Gender Violence of the Community of Madrid, they convey their concern to us to see the request for help for people who have made the change of sex registry, being now female, appear in Viagen as aggressors when their sex was male. So Viagen, I believe, is their database for the gender violence stuff. So what's more, some of the victims of violence are being treated at the same municipal point that their aggressor intends to access. So what that means is men who perpetrate domestic violence against women can change their gender and end up being housed in the same shelter as the women, as their victims. It's horrible. A circumstance that endangers both victims and professionals and puts at risk the protection system. Minister, it's clear that your law 4/2023, approved by your government, does not resolve the issues. For all these reasons, I would ask you to indicate how to proceed in the cases described so that on one hand, the integrity of the victims of violence is not jeopardised, and on the other, in addition to avoiding discrimination, there is a tendency to promote equality of opportunity in any area of our society. I remain at your disposal so that if you wish, we can deal with this in a grade. So that was sent on the 18th of March, so very, very recently. They are having insane problems in Spain at the moment. I don't claim to have the answer, but this ain't it. Now we hop to California, Gavin Newsom's California. And specifically I want to focus on the prisons in California. So in 2021, they started housing men with women, trans, whatever. Men are in women's prisons in California. The results were predictable, obviously. We have rape, assault, pregnancies. It's gotten to the point where they're now handing out condoms. And just a couple of other disturbing things as well. So male inmates can demand female staff strip search them, which obviously puts the women who work at the prisons at risk. 2021, as you'll see here, the Wolf Legal Director, so Wolf is the Women's Liberation Front, Wolf Legal Director Lauren Adams testified to the California Senate Rules Committee. The male inmates were getting erections during strip searches, behaving inappropriately, making comments to staff. So now the staff performing these strip searches have to wear body cams.
But actually, official policy at CIW is that officers must keep their body cams on during strip searches, and the footage is being saved in the cloud. According to one correctional officer, this policy is in place because male offenders who are being housed in women's facilities are getting erections during strip searches and making sexual comments to female staff. This was discussed at a July Inmate Advisory Council meeting due to concerns raised by the women regarding this issue. Many of these women have been sexually abused, and now they are required to be strip searched, videotaped naked, and they know that the footage is being saved in the cloud. This is causing them severe emotional distress.
These women that are housed in these prisons, there's a high chance they've already been victims of, domestic abuse, rape, sexual assault, and put this shit on them. And another thing, so when a trans person gets put in prison, who do you think pays for the treatment? It's the taxpayer. So according to this article here, the state of California spent over $3 million on male to female related transgender care between 2013 and 2023. That's according to a public records request from the California Correctional Healthcare Services, and it was obtained by Amy Ichikawa, I hope I pronounced that right. She's a women's rights advocate and a former inmate of the facility, so I think she knows firsthand what's going on. Here's some stats here, just how much it's costing people. Laser hair removal, vaginoplasties, and you'll hear people, often spout, well, trans women have a hard time in prison, they get subjected to all this trauma, but let's have a squeeze at, the stats of why transgender prisoners get locked up, shall we? So here's a very comforting headline from the UK. Sorry, if you're in prison for brutal crimes, I don't care. I do not care. I do not care. I'd rather they put you under the prison, honestly. And here's another lovely little stat. Just back onto California again. So this says number of offenders who identify as trans, intersex, non-binary, housed in male facilities seeking transfer to female facilities, and the percentage who are registered sex offenders. It's always a common theme. The reason I mention all this is, because if this equality bill goes through, it's just, like, as I said in my first video, predators are going to predator. There's always going to be people out there that will go to these lengths, will go to lengths to live out their fantasies. But these laws make it so easy for them to do so. Why wouldn't they? And who suffers? Who suffers? The women in prisons, the women in shelters. It's not just the bloody bathroom stuff, although, again, big issue. It's the most vulnerable women who have already gone through bloody hell and back themselves. I couldn't imagine being in one of these prisons, getting housed with these men. It's just absolutely bonkers. So yeah, that's just a small snippet of what's been going on around the world in relation to where self-ID can lead. And I think it's time we wake up over here in Australia. The Tickle v Giggle case, I believe, goes to trial next week. So go and support Sal. Roxy Tickle has his entire lawsuit funded by the taxpayer, whereas Sal has to, scrape every penny out of her own pocket. Absolutely disgusting. And I guarantee you, if we eventually get our own version of Scotland's Hate Crime Act, give it time, it'll happen. The misinformation bill that the Albo government want to push through, we'll be seeing more and more of these cases. And I do not want my children growing up in this world. We got to do better. We got to do better. Thanks for watching. Take care.